This is a special podcast presentation from 700WLW.com. This is Doc Thompson On Demand.
The NFL players and also the NFL owners have agreed to a 24-hour extension in their negotiations on how to carve up the $9 billion empire that is the National Football League. Lance McAllister joins me now. Lance, having negotiated many of his own contracts, understands what it's like to deal with a $9 billion empire, those type of numbers. The negotiations must be rough, Lance.
You know, it makes my head hurt. And lost in all this, I mean, you have the most profitable sport going. You have the most popular sport going. You have fans who crave the sport year-round, not just in season but out of season. Today was supposed to be the day that free agency began, which is just a frenzy for fans in the league itself. It's a chance to see where players are going, and the rumor mill spins, and instead we're sitting here now debating whether there's going to be an extension to an extension so owners and players can decide how to divide up $9 billion. It's just ridiculous.
You know, Lance, I always thought, and again, I was a football and baseball fanatic for the longest of time, and I kind of got away from it just because of all the garbage like this that surrounds it. I think a lot of us feel that when you hear people complaining about money and stuff. But I love draft day. I love the draft weekend, and I keep thinking there's got to be other ways to make money the rest of the year like that. How come they're not focused on stuff like that to make some more money?
Well, it's been...
I know they've done it a little bit.
It shows how absurd the entire situation is. Baseball has suffered. Baseball lost a World Series, and the game tanked from an attendance standpoint. The NBA and NHL has gone through stuff like this. There are certainly plenty of examples of what not to do, and just the imagery of owners and players in front of microphones on steps of courthouses or of hotels debating this. Fans don't care. If you did a survey right now of whether you side with the owners or players, fans are going to say, I don't side with either one. I just want the game, and I want news that relates to the game. I don't want this. It's just a poor play by the NFL right now.
That's a great point. That's why I'm going to talk about my idea for a sports fan union coming up, because we're not connected with either side. We just want the stuff that we want. We want to be able to watch and enjoy the game.
Absolutely. A total disconnect from the reality of the situation for where the fans are. And look, you know, there's really four main points. It's how they're going to split up the pie. There's how you're going to pay rookies. There's if there's going to be an 18-game season. And there's how you're going to treat players after they're done with medical expenses and what. Those are four main issues, and those are legitimate issues. But to have reached this point, it makes my head hurt.
Well, because they were talking on and off all last year. Then they've been locked in the room for the last 10 days or so, and you still can't come up with something?
It's absurd. You're not scoring any points. This is supposed to be about, you can say what matters and what's lost in the shuffle. Your fans sit there and say, what are we doing here? How can you? And I hear the arguments. Well, the average career of an NFL player is only 4 years, and they've got to get theirs. If the average salary of an NFL player is say $300,000 a year, and their career is 4 years, that's $1.2 million. And I'm supposed to feel sorry for the fact they're only going to play 4 years? How many Joe Bag of Donuts would take $1.2 million made over their entire working life? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, and you got those smart players that understand that. Look at like Robert Smith. He plays some good years, has some fun, makes some dough, and then goes out and does something else. Quits a little early, right?
Simple as that.
All right, so what's going to happen here if they don't reach an agreement? How this thing roll out?
If an agreement is not reached, if an extension is not reached, there will be a lockout, and that means nothing takes place. There's no communication, as is being told right now. Owners to player, or owners to their players, coaches to their players. You effectively, if you're the Bengals, as it relates most here, it will be a new offensive coordinator in Jay Gruden who's unable to talk to his players. It will be, as Jordan Palmer told Jeff Hobson of Bengals.com earlier this week, Jordan, the one that fans really don't have any faith in, has already said he's going to get his wide receivers and running backs together, and they're going to work out in Arizona. And good for Jordan, because Carson Palmer certainly is only standing up for himself right now and not choosing to lead in any way, shape, or form. But Jordan will be forced to get his receivers and running backs together. They can work out on their own, But if you don't know what the new offensive coordinator wants to do, you're kind of just, playing football out in the backyard.
There's no possibility of a strike season where they bring in scabs?
No, I mean, a lockout, that's a good point. The key difference between lockout and strike, the strike, the players walked away and the owners said, all right, well, if you're not playing, we'll find somebody. Right now, the owners are locking them out. The owners, there won't be replacement players because the owners are locking them out. There'll be no football because it's the owner's game at that point.
Now, even if let's say the entire season is gone, they don't field any games the entire season, and we have to wait till the following season, the fans will be back.
I believe that is true, yes. In the case of Major League Baseball, they've slowly trickled back, and there are still people who say to me today, I haven't gone back since the strike. Baseball didn't have the popularity. Baseball wasn't at the top of the totem pole like the NFL is. Whatever the date is, and look, CNN this week, their money experts said the NFL could afford to go 2 years with a lockout. Now, I think that's bordering on insanity, but you give me the date and the fans will be back. It shouldn't have to come to that.
Well, I think what would happen is then you've got players losing money and owners losing money, although the fans come back. So then they're going to want to make that up, I would think, in the following few seasons.
And, Doc, the key point in all this is, it's all about leverage, and it's all about feeling the sting. The fact of the matter is the NFL players right now aren't going to feel the sting till they miss their first paycheck. That's not preseason. That's not off-season. That's the first week of the regular season. That's when the wives or the girlfriends are going to say, hey, where's the money? That's where the guys are going to say, wait a minute, I need this or I need that. All of this is minutia right now. It's not going to matter in reality to the players and the owners until that first paycheck has to be cashed.
Mo had a great point. He's like, most of the stadiums around the country are paid for by the fans, and now they're not putting a team on the field.
Exactly right.
How do you feel about the 18-game regular season moving on?
I don't. Whether they play 18 or not, I don't care. I'll buy the argument that it leads to more injuries, it leads to lesser talent being on the field. I get all that. For me, the silliness is 4 preseason games. Nobody needs 4 preseason games, and no fan should be forced to pay at regular ticket price 4 preseason games. And look, in my world, I lop off 2 of them. And that's it. I just go with 2 preseason. I go with 16 regular season and be done with it. The owners are going to say, well, you can't get rid of 2 games because we're losing money. You got to give us 2 on the back end that means something. Well, that's bull. Look at your product and the level of competitive nature and the product that will be on the field. If you extend it to 18, more guys hurt, lesser product being offered on the field. And look at the silliness of charging fans for 4 preseason games. Simply cut off 2 and be done with it.
Especially those first 2 preseason games.
Oh, they're dreadful.
I mean, nobody's on the field that no one's putting their effort into it.
Doc, by the 4th one, traditionally, it's the Indianapolis Colts are the perfect example. By the 4th preseason game, the Colts start none of their starters. None. And fans are being asked to pay $70 for an average ticket price to watch preseason game number 4 with no starters whatsoever.
The only way 18 works for me is if you, like you said, you replace the 2 of the preseason games and make them regular season. That's the only way it works for me.
Yeah, and and the other point, and look, and the whole rookie salary thing is a key here because the insanity is for a draft pick in the first round this year, the first pick overall will get $50 gazillion, and he's done nothing. In the NFL, the older players are saying, well, wait a minute, how can you give guys coming into the league who have done nothing guaranteed money at that rate when our veterans on the back end, the proven ones, aren't getting much at all? They're being squeezed out, which is a very fair point. As I talked with John Thornton earlier this week, the former Bengal, the issue is if you reduce the money the young guys are making on the front end, who's to say the owners are actually going to take that money and spend it on the veterans on the back end? And that's very fair. But I think most would agree it's insane for somebody to be able to walk into the league having never played it down and get guaranteed money what first-round picks have been getting in years past.
Now, though, that's very good argument from the seasoned veteran players that have proven themselves over and over again. But then on the other side, you're like, well, they're getting paid. They worked out a deal, right? I mean, they worked out a contract. Maybe there's just a better way to negotiate. So if you are a veteran player, then you can, I don't know if you could renegotiate or something like that, but open-ended or something.
Yeah,
although you can sign limited deals, though. No one's locking them into 10 years or anything.
Sure, absolutely.
What about the pensions? They don't get any type of pension? What type of pensions do they have now?
I mean, the biggest concern is the way, and this gets deeper into it than I'm able to even understand and articulate at this point, but there's a concern for the NFL, for lack of a better word, cast aside a lot of these guys in their later days, and there's the horror stories of players dying young, the studies of concussion still going on, and the NFL really hasn't done enough. And Mike Ditka, some of the older guys, the Hall of Famers, have really fought for this as well. They just haven't been taken care of from a medical standpoint and benefit standpoint as they should be by the league based on what they've put into the game on the front end.
I would say that some of that's their own responsibility, though. I mean, I understand they want some sort of pension, but if you're making, millions of dollars a year, not all of them are making millions of dollars a year, but put some money into your health plan for the future. Lay some of that aside, invest.
In the end, and I'm ballparking this, when the average salary for a player this year is about $300,000, when I hear the players say, "Look, we're only around for 4 years," well, boo-hoo. Nobody forced you to be a football player, and I guarantee you, most people listening right now would say, "Wait a minute, you're telling me if they play for 4 years and make an average of $300,000, they've made 1.2 in 4 years, and I'm supposed to feel sorry for them for what comes after their playing days are over?" Holy cow.
Put me in, Coach.
Absolutely.
Put me in. I'm ready to play. Lance McAllister, thanks for laying it out, sir. I appreciate it. You have more on this tonight?
You got it. Coming up 6:06.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Sports Talk, Lance McAllister tonight on the big one, 700 WLW. Quick call here. Greg, Amelia, you have a suggestion for the NFL problem?
Absolutely. What we do is we negotiate 17-game schedule. The 17th game is played overseas by every team in the NFL. It gives them an extra week off also. So you have 2 off weeks, and you get to play overseas, whether it be Mexico or wherever. And they've been wanting to move the NFL into Europe, so why not let every team go there?
Actually, that's not a bad plan, though. I mean, you're right, because that would help the NFL branch out to become worldwide, and that's something they really haven't been able to do. They've done some of the preseason games, and those just don't have the same feel.
Exactly. But that would be the cure to that. And I heard you talk about pensions before.
Yes, sir.
They do receive.
I don't know. Yeah, and that's why I was asking Lance. I don't understand how much they receive. Do you have any idea what their pension system is like?
I know a former player who played in the NFL for, I believe, 7 years. He's receiving an annual pension of $90,000 a year.
What level of player was he? Average, low, superstar?
He played for the San Francisco 49ers. He won a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots. He was a running back. He was a fullback. Great at catching the ball out of Notre Dame. But he's done well, but he manages his money. He's a smart kid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, $90,000, that's more than most of us make now. If that's your annual pension, that's pretty substantial.
For sure. Exactly.
All right, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it.
But I know you had to do at least a minimum of 4 years in order to receive a pension, too.
Okay.
But they should deal with injuries is what they got to deal with.
These are all things that I'm sure they're working on right now. Appreciate the call, Greg. The one thing I will say, yeah, they end up getting hurt. We know the problems. Somebody, trying to remember who the player was, that it was, I think it was a safety that was telling me this, that they had both hips replaced. They played 8, 9, 10 years, had to have both hips replaced within 10 years after playing, just from running like that, because our body isn't meant to run as fast as they do, for as long as they do, playing at that level. Yeah, you're going to have problems, but you got to realize that going in. You got to say, hey, I might get hurt or whatever, put your money away, allow for your future health concerns down the road. All things to negotiate. Lance said something really important, though. He said the players, the fans don't care. They don't care if the players come out. They don't care if the owners come out on top. They don't care. See, we're not connected with either one of them, which is why I think we need a sports fan union. The players have a union. The owners negotiate as a group. What about the fans? They all are going in it for something. What do we get out of it? We build them stadiums. What do we get out of it? I'm going to lay out my argument for a sports fan union. You can tell me what you think. Coming up next on 700 WLW. Fox 19 storm tracker forecast. Got isolated showers throughout the day and a high near 59. Heavy rain, thunderstorms tonight. More rain tomorrow. Currently at the big one, it's 46. I was a regular sports fan. I grew up religiously watching football and baseball. I don't have the same passion I once did. I still enjoy it. But I got away from being that fanatic because I got tired of all the BS when it came to money around the fans and the owners and all of that, and them making millions of dollars and whining. Hate that. But one of the biggest reasons I stopped watching is because I got tired of watching losers. I grew up outside of Cleveland. I got tired of watching losers. In my 42 years of life, they've never had any type of championship. And I got tired of investing my time, money, and energy. But I think I may have a solution. To those of us who back losers, well, like the Bengals. You ever had a championship? No, they've never had a championship. So for those of us who back losers, we need some parity here. Players have unions. Owners have basically a union. They work together as a group. Where's the protection for the sports fan? We give them our time, our support, our emotions. We spend money, buy their stuff. We buy products that they endorse. Most of the stadiums have been paid for with tax dollars. And look at the disparity. The players get rich. The owners get rich. What do the fans get? What do the fans get? If not for the fans, the owner would not have a business. If not for the fans, the players wouldn't have a team to play on. So where's our seat at the table during the negotiations? Shouldn't we be there negotiating? Shouldn't they be willing to go into the table and negotiate with us too? What is the players' compensation? Money. What is the owner's compensation? Money. What is the fans' compensation? It's supposed to be winners. Entertainment, yes, to a lesser degree, and also winning. Now, yeah, you get entertainment out of it, but at some point, the entertainment stops when it's just losers. So I need compensated. And the only way I'm going to get it is a sports fan union. Now, there's only one winning team per sport. So that means 1 out of the 30th baseball fans get compensated. 1 out of 30. 1/32 of NFL fans get compensated. Now, yes, some teams have more fans than others, but generally speaking, only the people that back that one baseball team or that one football team actually get compensated with the winner. The rest of us, losers. How do the rest of us get compensated? A sports fan union. Not all fans are getting compensated every year. Most of us, the majority of us, do not get compensated. So, as part of a seat at the table, here's what we would do. We would start a sports fan union, and all fans would be required to join the union. If you listen to the game here on 700 WLW, you've got to join that union. You watch the game, you're now a union member. You discuss sports with your friends, you can't do it unless you're a union member. You don't want to be a scab, do you? If you're discussing what happened with the local team, you got to join the union or you're a scab. Can't wear the team garb, can't wear the hats unless you are a sports union member. Yes, we would have to pay dues. With our dues, we will elect some sort of representative. They'll also be fans, and they will negotiate on our behalf at the table with the players and the owners. They'll negotiate things like the disparity in winning that I mentioned. The last Super Bowl was the Steelers and Packers. How many times can those two go to the Super Bowl? Aren't they overrepresented? Aren't the Yankees overrepresented? Yes. So we need to make it fair with a union. Sure, you wouldn't have the big red machine anymore if it would have been around back then because they were winning too often. But the Bengals would have a championship by now, depending on how many teams in the league throughout the years. Well, there's another one on the way. We can negotiate for things like cheaper beer and hot dogs, maybe player changes we'd have some say in. But basically, the big thing would be everybody would get to win once, and then we start the cycle again. Wouldn't that make it fair? Isn't that worth having a union? 1 out of every 32 seasons, the Bengals win. They become the champion. Well, we just negotiate that and make sure they're controlling it. 1 out of every 30 years, the Reds win the World Series. I think that's the way to go, a sports fan union to make it fair. Doc Thompson on the home of the Reds, 700 WLW. Coming up today on the big show with Bill Cunningham, Ken Brew's going to join him right off the bat at 12:06 to discuss the possible NFL lockout. That's coming up today with Willie on 700 WLW. Donnie in Cincinnati, you're on the big one.
Yeah, Doc, I just wanted to first start off by saying I think you're a glorified idiot.
Okay.
One day you're wanting to bust people's chops from being in unions and support unions, and then all of a sudden you're wanting to come up with this bona fide idea of a fans union because you want something. Well, now you know how we feel when we're firemen and cops. You know, every day those guys, they put on their cleats and their shoulder pads to go out and run fast. You know, anybody can do that. Truly, anybody can run. However, when I don on my work boots, my fire gear, my SCBA, my mask, and all that, there's a chance that when I go into my field of play, which is a structure fire, I may not come out alive. I knew that going into it 21 years ago, and I'm okay with that. Now you know why I want to negotiate my future, not only for me, for health care, but for my family.
Well, wait a minute. You don't like the idea of the sports fan union?
I think that's an incredibly stupid, and you know.
No, what are you talking about? This way, we would make sure that we get what's fair ours. We're putting in the time. Shouldn't I get some? Shouldn't I get some championships, Donnie? Shouldn't I get some championships? Shouldn't I have some championships?
You know what? You've got a decision as to whether or not you want to watch the Bengals play on Saturday or Sunday or not.
Interesting.
I think that they are overpaid for what they do. I think they're. I mean, it's what, $7 or $8 for a beer down there.
Right. I mean,
for a bottle of pop. I think that's they're gouging us.
So I deserve a championship if I put in my time and effort in that.
You're entitled?
Yes, of course, for a championship.
That's interesting because 4 or 5 days ago,
I'm entitled, Donnie.
You made light of that.
I'm entitled.
And you made light of me making that comment.
You think that's silly to say a person is entitled?
It's my question.
Really?
You remember that?
You think that's silly for a person to say they're entitled because I don't have to watch the games? Is that what?
You made light of
Donnie, I'm asking. Hold on, I'm asking you a question. No one can understand. I'm asking you a question. You don't think you think it's silly that I say entitled because I have a chance whether or not to watch the game, right? Is that what you're saying?
Whether or not you want to watch the game. You can
Interesting.
You want to watch them.
You know what's funny about that, Donnie? You have a choice of whether or not you want to be a cop, a firefighter, or a teacher, don't you?
That's the choice I made. Correct.
You're right. There you go. There you go. So if you think the sports fan union is silly because I have a choice whether or not to watch the game, you have a choice whether or not to be a cop or a firefighter, a teacher, or a plumber, or anything else, or a talk show host, or a baker. I guess it's different then because it's you, Donnie. See, the difference here, Donnie, I was being a smartass. A sports fan union is a ridiculous concept. It makes no sense. That's called satire. Ta-da! Congratulations, Donnie. You now understand what satire is. I understand you didn't understand when you called in. I'm the one that's consistent. You're the one who's not. If you say you have a choice as a sports fan whether or not to go to a game, watch the game, buy the merchandise, you have a choice whether or not to partake in a certain career. You think it's unfair that some teams go to the championships more than others? I bet you don't. I'll bet you think that's just, well, the way things are. Some people work harder. Some people are more talented. Some people this. Some people have a better deal. Same thing. Go out there as an individual and make your case. I got an email from Brett. He said, sounds like this could be a good idea, Doc. Would the union protect me from getting ejected from the game if I, as a member, were to get a little too drunk and out of control at the game? I'll tell you what, Brett, based on what I understand from some other unions, it not only would protect you if you got a little too drunk, but if you did something horrible, if it was clearly your fault at the stadium, if you were clearly a bad fan and maybe even breaking the law, the Union of Sports Fans would defend you. We would defend you and make sure that even though you've been that bad fan, that you're allowed back in the game, that you'd still be allowed to be a fan. That's how it would work, Brett. I like the way you think. It's Doc Thompson, 700 WLW.